Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. This has been just an exciting already 1 day, 2 days, going into 2 days. And thank you so much, everybody, for hosting this. Today's talk is going to be about fine arts and NFTs and why would you have fine arts getting into this technology space. Really quickly, my name is Christos Makridis. I'm representing Living Opera, and my best friend, CYPHER, founder of Living Opera, is also on the stage, world-class opera singer. And really what got me into this area of fine arts is realizing there was so much beauty in this space. And when you think about the unamplified voice that is just so powerful and so beautiful when properly harnessed, and to combine that with technology to give people experiences that last a lifetime that your children can participate in, and to see just the vastness of human potential. But one thing that I'm just really excited to share about today is how bridging these different communities, taking the crypto community and then merging it with fine artists is just going to yield so many possibilities. And so before I turn it over to Greg over here, I'll just mention what's up on the slide here is a Christmas album that we're putting together, which we are excited to pilot an NFT over. So we're going to take the operatic voice, combine it with digital art, and then also build in a virtual reality component. And so take you back to like your childhood memories of sitting by your fireplace and listening to Christmas carols and sipping hot chocolate, or being like in front of the stars or under the Sistine Chapel and just looking at its vastness, listening to some of this music. And so we're just excited to be able to pilot this, and we'll get into more of it in the next 20 minutes or so. But with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Awesome. Thanks, Christos. Yeah. So a quick disclaimer here. We were slated to have two amazing artists on the panel up here with us, but both jumped ship this week. So apologies that we don't have perfect representation. But so hey everyone, I'm Greg. I manage artist success at Maker's Place. So for us, that means seeing creators from their application through onboarding and ultimately some digital marketing and success thereafter. So if anyone in here is not familiar, Maker's Place is a NFT marketplace. So we are about 3 years old. We take a more curated and fine art approach in the space. So as you can see on the slide here, I'm going to talk through some of our curator program and community involvement in terms of bringing all these different branches and different segments who are outside of the digital realm right now into NFTs and combining those from a fine art perspective. So I started with Maker's Place about a year ago. So before what I like to call the Beeple boom. So I was like on the team that worked with Beeple and Christie's in March or April, I can't remember, but just like a crazy experience. And yeah, just excited to be here. Maker's Place has some stuff going on this week, and we're all thrilled to be celebrating the space right now.
My name is Alexandro Silver, co-founder of Lady and Stater, which is a virtual crypto art gallery based in New York City, with my partner Joseph Wilcox. We're both artists, so we come from the traditional art background. Together we have like 30 years worth of experience, and we decided to get into the space because we saw a very opportunity, this rupture, if you will, where you can actually enable and help other artists, especially underrepresented artists, get an audience. We also saw that there was room for difference. There's room for art that actually had a little bit more substance. It's not moving, but anyway, behind me is artwork by an artist that we represent. Her name is Catalina Tuca. And even though the work looks like something you would typically encounter in the NFT space, there's a little bit more behind it. She asks people to describe a feeling or emotion, and then she utilizes that and she farms it out to a designer who then creates the actual three-dimensional model, and then pairs that with the audio. So now you have this rendering of what someone is actually feeling, and it kind of It captures the ethos of what Lydian Stater is kind of about. It's about art that not only is engaging, but also has substance and meaning behind it. So with that, I was going to ask a question to the panel. What challenges have you guys encountered bringing in challenging work into the NFT space? Christos?
Well, I'll just start by saying, I'm probably the most unlikely suspect to get into the fine arts. My background is in technology and economics and engineering, but it was when I got captivated by the voice and seeing the beauty that is there, and also the potential excellence that one can just spend years and years in practicing the voice. And so one of the challenges, and I think this is why this event going on is so important, is to connect communities of people that have complementary skills to achieve similar objectives. And we might not agree on everything. There's co-authors of mine that I work with that I might not agree with them on everything, but we agree on some central objectives. And so within Living Opera, Sula and I, Norman and I, we all work together to try to bridge some of these divides. So for example, a lot of the opera houses just have a lot of centralized control. And one of the things that we talk about on our platform, and this is something that Sula has just gone on Instagram and talked about quite often, is that if you are doing a job in Germany, you're getting a contract for $20,000, you have to know that the tax rate is going to be around 39%. And so how much do you actually take home? And then if you have to pay expenses. And so what we're seeing, and just to come kind of back on point with two thoughts, is that bringing communities together that haven't typically met and interacted and know the language, the incentive structure, just the overall norms, that is a big challenge, but it's something that we're really trying to bridge. And we're always eager to kind of meet, whether it's a technologist or whether it's another artist. The other thing that I think we're starting to see even more of, especially over the pandemic, you think about all the institutions of higher education, they had to take their teaching online almost instantaneously. And so one of the challenges that I think we sometimes see is how do you partner with institutions where they're just over years, they might have a standard protocol around doing things. They might have their curriculum. They have the teachers that are teaching a particular lesson plan. But how do you innovate and bring the energy that is at an NFT.NYC, bring the ideas, the energy, the products, and the concept of NFTs in a way that is attractive, is diplomatic, and is ultimately kind of a win-win for everybody. And so that's what we try to do within Living Opera, where we create educational curricula. We show how it can complement a singer, a performing artist's trajectory and help them learn, as well as what we're doing with this album, which is really combining different media for creating experiences, namely the voice, digital art, and then couple that with virtual reality. And our hope is just that people want to be part of that vision. But I think to sum up all of it is just how do you bring communities together that typically don't talk with each other, and they have different norms and styles and incentives. And I think it just takes people that are really in it and willing to kind of go the extra mile. And that's what everybody here is willing to do. So that's probably my main thought. Yeah, Greg, actually, this is something that Greg can speak to a lot as well, because by creating a marketplace, I should let you do the explaining. But yeah, Greg, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on some of those challenges?
Yeah, so from Maker's Place perspective, we have more of a, like I said, curated platform where we focus a lot on authenticity and trust for our community members. So the onboarding process for all of our artists is a little bit more thorough than your average. So designing that part of the platform on a product level, fine-tuning that to be efficient from the artist standpoint, in a rush to try to mint their first piece, totally excited, but also balance that with, again, that level of authenticity and trust within the community has been both a challenge, but also a blessing. For the platform, I think it's really starting to set in as a true core pillar of Maker's Place. You can come and feel trusted as a collector or an artist in the space, both having their equal pros from that point of view. But in addition to that, a challenge in terms of the convergence of the fine art, very traditional world coming into the digital space for the first time, both as a challenge and an opportunity. I mean, many artists are just confused. So we're doing as much as we can in terms of education and just giving enough strategy and insights into what we see in the market that changes pretty much weekly at this point to these artists coming into the space and need that advice. So it's kind of a two-sided answer.
Cool. I just want to quickly acknowledge the screen, not as a bad thing, but as a potential glitch NFT behind us. So if anybody, do you see it, Christos?
Let's go. Oh boy.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Part of our, yeah.
So
capture the experience, and then we'll sell it.
So as far as challenges for Lydian Stater, so we deal with traditional artists, and we onboard them. A lot of them, people that we've met through our trajectory. Most of them they've maybe heard of NFTs, but are a little bit curious. There's a lot of apprehension, obviously, in the traditional art space. Some of them don't have the technical know-how. So we kind of help them along and give them those tools, we feel as a sustainability aspect to it, where you can actually utilize it to further along your career, to help pay for projects. We also have collector dinners where we get collectors together and we have either present artists' work to them, and a lot of them are actually interested in the space, and they're young. The cool thing is a lot of the young collectors actually have experience with cryptocurrency, which is the next step would be the NFT. And then we started a podcast as well for the educational component, where we actually speak to people and the actual experts in the field so that they can give examples of what to do. And nothing but challenges, I think, at this point in time.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out too is it's interesting to see people try to become chameleons to what the space is in their mind, even if you're coming from your own unique aesthetic or your own unique brand. Like if you're an artist that's established a namesake for yourself, and I've seen it happen where they still feel the need to try to replicate what's going on, whether it's generative, even if that's way out of their realm, or 3D. Like I have to learn Cinema 4D. I mean, yes, to an extent, but in terms of some of the most successful stuff that we've seen from fine art individuals and super traditional world type of players coming into the Makerspace ecosystem has been something that's extremely true to themselves and what they've created for themselves, with some sort of layer of context to the space as it is. But again, that balance between not trying to copy or iterate on something that's already existed too far. So that's a challenge. And
I have a question. So one of the things that came up in both your responses is like the importance of community, and like to what extent can some of this education be just like decentralized through communities that organically form. And I'm wondering, maybe Greg, you can talk a little bit more about how do you like incentivize, how do you create that governance structure that leads to formation of kind of individual like communities and people educating one another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like the world that you come from is very unique. It's almost like there's all of these segments and silos of interests in the world that are starting to catch wind of what an NFT is and what ownership can mean for their community. And it's interesting to see some individuals from those communities kind of like take the charge, get educated super, super deep down the rabbit hole, and then kind of go back to their community and spread that education. It kind of feels like when bees like go out and find something good, and then they come back to their hive and they all like start buzzing together. It feels like that. And at Makerspace, we've tried to kind of like capture that through a curator program. So won't go into too much detail, but Basically, like community curators can work with us to help educate their community on more of like a handheld one-on-one basis, and those artists that are then referred to the platform get extra benefits, and curators are financially incentivized. So it's a very symbiotic relationship between the space and these different pockets of interest and different segments, whether it's fine art or music or live performances, just all different things that tying together.
And isn't it that it's kind of what it's all about? It's like we're just facilitators, helping with either tools or resources. You're hopefully just launching this enterprise where this person kind of like thanks you and just grows up and does their own thing, right? It's like that's all we really want to do. And for us in particular, seeing a lot of the work, I mean, it just seems like the work has to transform at some point, because a lot of the visual work on NFT platforms, not only do they look alike, but they kind of mimic, like you were saying, they mimic each other. But to bring in your personality and to bring in your expertise and to bring in your something other than just copying whatever is out there, and giving the permission for artists who would never like work in this particular space. I mean, some of them, if you're really a practicing artist, you don't have time to be on Discord 24/7, right? You should be making your own artwork, and that should be something that somebody can assist them with. If you are the kind of artist that's fine. We had one that was going to be on the panel that he just lives on Discord. But yeah, I guess where I was going with this, we're talking about values and what the value is of what you guys are kind of doing with your platforms and what that kind of brings into the community and sense of community and outreach. And you want to talk about that, Christos?
Yeah, well, so from our perspective in Living Opera, our mantra is around informing, empowering, and equipping performing artists. So we've got the educational content, and so just as Alexandro was talking about, is that you want artists to be able to grow up and to journey over their careers and become self-sustaining. But sometimes the current infrastructure that we live in within the world doesn't really provide a means, because there's a lot of artists that just can't make a living, especially in some of these big cities, can't make a full living. And so one of the things we're really thinking about is how do we create like these new platforms? And so you're hearing about a little bit of that today. But for each artist every artist needs to have something in their heart that says like, this is what I was born to do. And if everybody is just looking to like the other person and being like, how can I copy what this other person is doing, or how can I mimic that? You're just going to, at best, you're going to get like an average result. But what really is going to resonate with people and create a heart-changing experience with people that consume the art, especially in the fine arts, which has so much beauty there, you really have to believe in it yourself. And what we're doing with, for example, this EP and the Christmas album, we're just taking some of these classic songs that are just so beautiful, and the lyrics have just been preserved throughout all of history. But then just over the pop culture sometimes like adds in auto-tune, it adds in these different flashy things, but it takes you a little bit further away. And so what's really excited us is returning back to some of the basics, and then just really, really expanding that, adding in technology, adding in this different form of multimedia. And our hope is that other artists, especially within the opera sphere, see that as an additional avenue for generating income, for connecting with new fans, for creating new audiences. And I just bet that there's tons of people at NFT.NYC that would, frankly, love a lot of opera, or just love like some of these fine arts that have just been that have been kind of hidden, because in the United States it's a smaller sector. It's a lot smaller. You see the number of likes that Taylor Swift will get. It's not as big as some of the other pop artists. And so I think it's exactly on point here of just like, how do you, as an individual artist, that you really believe in something, then give that to the world, and how do you best express it? And NFTs are just a platform for expressing that and for documenting that ownership. And then this comes to backstage, we were talking about what's the central value creation that's going on? Because if it's an NFT for an NFT sake, that maybe somebody will buy it, maybe not. but it's not going to really. I mean, Gary Vee was talking about this as well. It's like, what are we really creating? And we have to be honest with ourselves. And so I think, I mean, all of us here, and I mean, we can delve into this more, but it's like, we have to, if you're going to be minting an NFT, it's like, okay, what in the world is going to be different as a result of this? And for us, it's like, well, we have this new experiential form of creating a new way of creating an experience. And with Maker's Place, it's about, I mean, you have this curated content, you have a marketplace, and anyways, now I'm speaking a little bit outside my lane, but yeah, maybe just we have about 6 minutes left, and so maybe this last thought is like, how do we as I mean, combination of artists, technologists, thinking about governance, how do we ensure that the NFTs and the artwork that is being put out there is really creating value? How do we measure that? And what are both of you doing kind of like within your organizations to ensure that there's actual value creation?
Yeah, I was just to say quickly, first and foremost, especially for artists in the traditional sense, you know, you're saddled with $100,000 worth of student loans. You're supposed to live in a city like New York, but you can't afford to live in a city like New York. So to give them a potential revenue stream that's that's within the actual field that you're actually doing, you're not taking a day job. Like the potential of like not having to have a day job, like that's amazing. And then it goes both ways. So if you have considered artwork entering the NFT space, you have a population of people who might encounter art that's a little bit more engaging and has a little bit more substance to it, and they might in turn go into the traditional fine arts space and maybe even buy a painting or a real sculpture. So hopefully it goes both ways. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll choose to answer your question. Like, no offense, but yeah, like, what are the values going on? Like core values. So for Maker's Place, empowering digital creativity is our core value. And you know, joining the team about a year ago, wasn't really engaging with too many fine artists at the time, or artists coming from a more traditional sense. But I will say, like, the convergence of the two worlds is so strong right now. One way I like to put it for people is it's not fine art and traditional art or digital art and NFTs. It's fine art and digital, or fine art and traditional art and digital applications and NFTs. And you know, it like genuinely like gives me chills thinking about how many times an artist will email either me or our team and say, like, this space coming from the fine art world has like truly changed my life. I either am now full-time digital or full-time my art career as my sole source of income. I quit my job, yada, yada, yada. Like, over and over again, we're hearing that. And yeah, the space as a whole, Maker's Place, all other platforms, just empowering digital creativity and freedom for artists who have been like craving that for so long, either doing client work or struggling to find work in general. I think it's like totally turning the tables, obviously, and it's just so special to see and be a part of. So I just wanted to also put a plug out there. If anyone in the space is trying to break into the digital art or needs a place for your work and a home, you can come find me. We're still a small team, super understaffed at the time. But from an artist perspective or anyone looking to get into the industry, I'll just be at the bar after. So you can come chat.
Sounds great. So we got 2 minutes. Do you guys want to talk about what you think the future of NFT art looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be super quick. I mean, some of what I think we've said a lot of this already is just that there's different phases that this technology is launched into the marketplace. It was like the first thing was like NFT, like what's an NFT? And so after that got a lot of buzz, and then you had like all these different kind of digital pieces of art that were coming out. I think now what's going to be super cool is that it's not only like a medium for expressing an initial, whether it's just a voice or just a painting or whatever it might be, but it's going to be the integration of across the spectrum. And because NFTs allow you to demarcate ownership so much better, it's going to allow for new modes of collaboration among artists. And so think about like the way that commercials are done. Think about the way that policy advocacy is done. I think think that there's just going to be like a new wave of content creation that goes on that is really involving artists of just like across the spectrum. So that's kind of my quick thought.
For us and the traditional artists circumventing the traditional art space, it's forcing these doors to kind of open. Like, you can't ignore me anymore. Like, this is actual good work, and you've been just, unfortunately, just representing all white male artists for however many years this thing has been going on, and you can't ignore us. So, I mean, that's kind of the empowering message we're trying to reach and help.
Unbelievable.
I think we're good.
That was amazing. How you guys feel? You want to tell people where they can find you, a little bit more about yourselves?
Yeah, so Living Opera, www.livingopera.org, and you can email us at hello@livingopera.org.
Yeah, just greg@makerspace.com and Twitter.
Just look up LydianStater.co, LydianStater.NYC on Instagram, LydianStater on Twitter. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.